The new fucking Marvel fighting game announcement came out, and I was like, hey, this seems like a perfect time to talk about one of my shitty hot takes that is kind of topical. So this is why fighting games are the best adaptation for comics, with the caveats of mainly action comics. Obviously makes sense. If you were playing fucking Red Room as a fighting game, it would be like fucking, the Executioner uses the Rat Queen special move, and it's just a bunch of like decrepit people with whose hair are tied together, and that's his something. Like, no, that shit would not work. Wait, that sounds kind of lit, but you get the point. And other caveat is, I'm mainly talking in the sense of like a comic book world or universe. Like if you're trying to adapt a particular story or like an individual character, I think it's probably better to, tailor your gameplay to that, that individual character. I'm mainly talking about like the universe, you know what I mean? Like if you want to make a Spider-Man fighting game, that shit sounds awesome. But no, that one doesn't work. I was gonna say, because like, if you just do one universe of Spider-Man, but then you still have all like the villains and shit, and that would still be a sick-ass roster. So I guess it'd be more like if like Wolverine Origins, the fighting game, where the roster would be like Sabretooth, Wolverine, and 18 fucking jobbers nobody gives a shit about. Like, it makes sense for stuff like that. But if we're talking about, like an overall universe, like we're talking about like the Darkness, or obviously the Marvel universe, DC universe, the fucking Massive-verse, fucking the BPRD universe, all of that shit, I think fighting games are the best way to adapt them. I think the smallest thing, because, you can adapt any art style to anything and make it look good, but I do think that the comic book art style looks the best in fighting games, right? I mean, you've seen it in like fucking the new Fatal Fury, Fighter Z, the entirety of the fucking MVC games. It fits really well. And if you want like where I feel like the comic book art style feels a little bit more stunted in games, and you kind of have to do cell shading, which can feel more like cartoony than comic book. It's shot like a fucking Beastie Boys video with the camera. Like, you wouldn't say that Borderlands has comic book art style, right? There are certain examples where they have done comic book art styles in like third-person games or like action games, stuff like that. There's obviously the Hellboy comic game, and then there is Mark of the Ninja and like 13, right? Shout out 13. But just like, I feel like it's harder, because even in like those games, it like in the Hellboy game, it's cool. I think some graphics work. I think sometimes it can look a little sucky and a little awkward. And also, it's just great style of Hellboy. Not that it's bad, it's just my thing. I think the lines blend in a little bit too much, and there's not enough like harsh distinction. But I'm not an artist, and I'm not somebody who like knows enough to make it compelling reading about it. So we're gonna fucking move past it. There's more examples of it being like well done in fighting games, I feel like, than in most other genres. I guess besides card games, that doesn't count, and like everything as a card game, whatever. I think the other thing is that there's a lot more like character expression in fighting games than like in other genres, right? Like what you can do with like an individual character it's just a bigger difference, right? I think the character expression in fighting games is more than a lot of other games with like multiple characters, right? In the way of being able to be like filming a large amount of power sets and have all the characters be really unique, right? Where it gets harder to make combat good in like a third-person action game, right? But when you have like fucking 6 characters, and like they're gonna have some sort of shared move or like idea of move, right? Even in games like Ninja Gaiden, where there's the different weapons. There's a second character, and she does play different to Ryu, but ultimately she's still a ninja with the weapon, right? It's not like you're playing as Ryu Hayabusa and then fucking the other character is Rambo, and that section just turns into a cover shoot, right? Because that's like, it's just hard to do, to have, that feeling. But in a fighting game, it's different, because like you're able to show the attacks with like different things and make their properties different to where like each individual punch will feel different. Whereas like in Arkham, right, you have all the Bat family, which once again, all of them are just back. Like, this guy uses guns, he's still doing flips and punching. Man, I really don't know what I was going to say besides just like backing it up with like a better game. Right, I was going to say Gotham Knights, but I'm like, let's go to a, Arkham Knight has multiple characters, right? And even Azazel is like, still pretty, like, this sounds so crazy. Azazel is like pretty similar to that. He feels real similar, even when you're playing him. I think it's Knight, right? But, and then in a fighting game, you can have each, like, individual punch feel different from one another, right? Even when you have, like, especially at this point, you can have two characters who are very similar, like, fucking Ryu and Ken, but at this point, they play so different, even in, like, how their shared moves work. Like, you're gonna use Ken's Fireball different than Ryu's Fireball, same thing with his Tatsu, same thing with his Shoryu, same thing, yada 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 yada. If you're playing, like, Batman, you're gonna punch a dude, you're punching a dude. It's gonna be punching a dude regardless, you know? There's just, like, a wider range of things you can put in a way that's feasible and not, like, overdoing it and taking way too much time and effort and money and yada yada yada, right? It just takes less time and money in a fighting game because all the, like, fighting is here as opposed to, like, all around, you know? That was a terrible description. It happens on more of, like, an individual arena than, like, a world or like a traditional one. Now you may say, "Oh, what about the story? What about the story? Fighting games have terrible story modes." They don't. Like, I agree. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them have full story modes and like they don't add a whole lot of content. But you can have really good story modes with like interesting like separate things to do, having like a good story. And I would say Injustice, but that that's just a bunch of fights. It just has like good writing and shit, right? But you want to know a good story mode? Them's fucking fighting herd. Now, this shit looks like a My Little Pony fan game, because it is. It's a really, really, really good My Little Pony fan game, dude. Combos are sick. They play super well. The story mode is actually super interesting, and it's also used as a way to, like, teach players the game. You have different, like, unique battles against, like, the AI or the story mode only enemies, but instead of them just being like, oh, this is a move from this guy. They're like completely unique, completely original. They're like snakes that'll come up and try to bite you, or like a giant like boss fight that'll make you like that'll shoot things from the side of the screen, go off and on, and they have very different gameplay throughout the story mode, while like getting you the story and giving you actions that make you feel like you're a part of the story. Running out of consonants, yada yada yada. Okay, so I made 2 points. Rebuttal. Do. Close an argument. Alright, so the biggest thing is how unique you can show different like methods of combat and different powers in a fighting game, right? And we will kind of have to use examples. So like, let's take a turn-based RPG, right? And we'll use Persona because I haven't played Midnight Suns. But whatever element, my Bufu, my yada yada yada, that's always going to be for AoE damage, right? It's always going to be for dealing with this horde and like talking weakness on as many enemies at the same time as possible, right? Whereas you take something like Third Strike and you know what I'm about to talk about, Urian's motherfucking mirror. Now, while whatever the fuck may be, only used for one thing, Urian's mirror, that shit be out here doing combos, be doing Oki, be in neutrals. It's a reversal, it's a wake up, and it's a counter zoning action. I've been watching a lot of those like new super hot fire videos. What is he doing back? Like I like him. Obviously, I'm watching. Shout out Babytron, but it was very like out of nowhere, So you're able to show like the versatility of power sets, even if they seem very limited, right? Like Invisible Woman, you think, oh, so you just turn invisible, but then she can also create the force fields, and then she can also throw force fields to create an object. She can also make things invisible in those force fields. She can, what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different options that a lot of superheroes have, even for what would be like a simple power. It's just easier to show that versatility and that uniqueness in a fighting But I think there are a lot of amazing qualities about, Action Comics and how they do things, how they look, and I think all of those just fit the shell of a fighting game super well. And there's so many different types of fighting games, whether it be like, more ground-based combat like Killer Instinct, heavy juggles like Mortal Kombat, constant speed and blasts everywhere with anime games and tag fighters. There really is something for pretty much every kind of combat, and they're just great fit for the genre. But without much else to say, it's been real, it's been fun, hasn't been real fun. Oh man, why didn't you mention hero shooters? Shut up!